Okay, sorry. Somehow the video got interrupted. But I look at my list, my playlist of cuckold videos that I've made since my very first video that I made back when I was living in Los Angeles several years ago. And I'm just like, this list is pretty extensive. And I'm thinking, like, how much more can I add to the topic of cuckold? I've talked about it in so many different aspects, right? I talked about the psychological underpinnings of cuckold and why and how white men get drawn to this lifestyle. And I talked about even the perspective of black bulls, how they are sucked up into the lifestyle and the interracial aspects of it, and the dangers and safety tips, which I actually released a video on safety tips for cuckolding back, I think, in February of this year, 2023. And I checked to see, like, what was my latest video. So I did do a video 3 months ago in July, but I was coming at it from a more of an intersectionality perspective and how cuckolding intersects with BDSM and channeling different sexual energies. So I don't know if you guys got a chance to watch that video. But yeah, I felt like a break from this topic was very much needed. I think that in order for us to really, fully appreciate going into depth and to peel back the layers of this topic, I think it necessitates taking a break from it. And then, we come back as we are now to kind of revisit this topic. It is a different angle, though, because I still continue to receive, even though I had, made the video back in March saying that I'm now taking video topic requests, excluding cuckolding, I still was receiving email messages, right? Like, you guys still continue to message me requesting that I talk about this topic, and sharing your own personal narratives and personal experiences related to this topic. But, I felt like, we needed a break. But this email that I received today, it is a little different. For some of you guys, it will be a fresh breath of air. It made me think about just my own personal experience in sexual expression and, sexual identity. I do identify as a heterosexual woman. But I am very fluid, I would say, in my sexual beliefs and sexual attitudes and sexual expression, right? So yes, I am attracted to men, born biological men, but I am open, and I don't consider myself a conformist in any sense of the word. I'm very different, to say the least. I would say in my attitudes, my belief system, just who I am. I've always been that way, and as I was reading, and I'm going to read you guys the email that I received today from a trans woman, actually kind of sharing some of her experiences and how she's been posing as a heterosexual cuckold man. But I kind of, related and identified with, her and what she was saying, just kind of taking me back to my own childhood. And I remember being, a young girl growing up in your typical two-parent household, my mother, my father, my sister, and some other siblings there were still there, like older siblings. I am the youngest, and my mother, as is the case with most mothers, she wanted to impose upon me this gender stereotype, right? So like we're all born unique in our own unique identities, and then along our development, right, from each step of the way after birth, we are socialized. We go through this socialization process, kind of spearheaded by our parents or our caretakers or whoever is raising us. For me, it was my biological mother and my father. We're very hands-on, and my mother definitely made a conscious effort to, dress me in girly clothing, right, and design my hair in a kind of girly fashion, wearing barrettes. And I just hated it. I remember how grueling that process was, and, having to put on clothing that I didn't necessarily feel that fit me, my identity and who I was, right? Who I am. But I did anyway because I didn't have a choice, right? We were forced to dress a certain way and to act a certain way and to even sit, right, a certain way. Girls are supposed to cross their legs, right? And boys are supposed to play with trucks and what they call it, Tonka trucks or G.I. Joe, figurines. And girls are supposed to play with Barbie dolls, and it was just beyond me. And I found myself, the more I felt pressured into conformity of these gender roles and gender stereotypes, the more I kind of resisted. And I think that is a factor when it comes to this particular topic that we're going to, delve into today in terms of gender expression, that there are many factors that influence it, right? It's not just biological, one would say nature, right? Or not just sociological nurture, right? And in the context of the nurture, I think it's not just by choice, it's not just by experience or happenstance that people choose to take a different route, right? The non-heteronormative route when it comes to gender identity and gender expression. I think with this imposition, this is imposing of gender norms and societal norms onto people, I think that is a contributing factor, right? It influences this resistance even more, right? You think about it, like I said, we're all born unique, and to be forced into a box, right? To either identify as this or as that poses many challenges, I think. And looking at the psychological aspect and the impact, the effects of these forced gender norms, right, onto people, I think it can have a detrimental impact, to say the least. So through this process of gender socialization, right, beginning, in early childhood and through by the hands of our parents, and then further reinforced in school, and then we look at today, even as adults, right? I'll give an example where I see like videos and I see memes posted, right, of, male celebrities that are doing different things, right? Especially in the context of art. They're wearing kilts, as one may say, right, or skirts, which in American culture, right, is not necessarily the norm, is not something that is expected of men to wear, but these men are using their artistic expression to step outside of the box, and these things are posted on social media and to see the backlash, right? So the backlash then becomes, this stigma that serves as a function to control or change that person's behavior, right? It may not change the actual celebrity because they're getting paid, like they're in their own world, right? But the people, the observers, us watching this, right, it goes to show like, hey, this is not acceptable, socially acceptable behavior, right? So then if you decide to, as a man, to put on a dress, to put on a skirt, you too will also be publicly ostracized, humiliated, right? And castigated and separated from society and made to feel less than you are, right? So that then, obviously is a psychological impact. And with, the humiliation, the berating, the making fun of, it creates this internal conflict that people who choose, who are different, right, who recognize their uniqueness and wanting to express that, right, they have to struggle this internal conflict, right? And then, they develop these feelings of inferiority, insecurity, confusion, right? And having to adapt to fit in, to be accepted. They find themselves code switching. So we're going to get into it, right? I just want to kind of lay the backdrop for the context of this email that I'm going to read. And I know that a lot of people, you know, this video will reach a lot of people, and people watching this can relate to this, right? I think it's very unfortunate for this to be a reality for a lot of people. And I think that this particular topic, as it relates to gender fluidity, right, and gender expression, and trying to, you know, find who you are in the context of this society, you know, being America, you know, that imposes these expectations upon us that aren't necessarily realistic and that are really unfair. Being that, you know, we're talking about the context of America, I know some of you guys may be watching from outside of America. I would say that America actually is more accepting, I think, of people who kind of deviate from those social norms compared to other cultures and other countries, right? So when you look at the consequences or the backlash that one may experience who deviates from those norms, the degrees are much different when you compare, you know, cultures and the context of country across the board, right? So in America, yes, you know, there are people who do get attacked, physically attacked. You know, I saw a documentary recently where it was documenting the history of trans women in the context of doing sex work here in New York City. I think it kind of had its headway in the meatpacking district of New York, which is like lower Manhattan. And they were talking about like the struggles that they endured and how, you know, some were physically attacked, physically assaulted just for being who they are, you know, a trans woman. And some, you know, they, in the documentary, it showed that, you know, a person was actually killed, right? So yes, we do have those extremes, but then there are laws that do protect this particular population here in America, whereas in other countries, there aren't any laws, right, that protect a person, a man, let's say, for example, wanting to walk down the street publicly in a dress, right, you know, or displaying public affection towards the same sex, right? You can be punished, you know, you can, you know, like people can act on that and get away with it, right? There aren't laws that are in place. So saying all that, I would say by comparison, perceivably, America is one of the safest places that an individual who doesn't conform to societal, you know, gender norms can feel safe by comparison. But let's get into this email. Before we do, I'm going to take a sip of my water. And I do welcome feedback. I know that this topic can be very sensitive, and I'm aware of that. I know that a lot of people definitely will relate to what's discussed here in this video. And I know it can be very triggering, as some of my videos are. I talk about a breadth of different topics, not just as it relates to sexuality, but as it kind of intersects with politics, race politics, interracial relationships, you know. So I get it. And I would like to think that my space here is a very safe space. And that's the reason why many of you do feel comfortable reaching out and sharing your personal, heartfelt stories and experiences with me. So I'm going to read this email that I received early this morning, actually. They sent it like, oh, wow. They sent it at 3:24 this morning. And so, as with all my emails that I receive from people, I will let the person remain anonymous. I will not say the person's name. But let's get into it. So, given that, you know, she identifies as a trans woman, I will use the proper pronouns. So I will refer to her as a she, especially with her name. And she actually sent a picture, so we'll get into that. So she says, hello, Danielle. I wanted to tell you how much your video, The Real Reason Why White Men Become Cuckolds to Black Bulls, touched me. So I made that video. It's been a while, okay? Now, for you guys who actually want to see, let me see. When did I actually make this video? I will pull it up. A lot of y'all watched it. That video did go viral. And the response has been somewhat divided. So, as is the case with many controversial things, right? Not everyone agrees. But I can say that a lot of people, I think, were in denial. A lot of cuckold men were like, no, right? And this is a very dynamic situation and very dynamic topic. So, of course, not everyone fits. It's not a cookie cutter approach, right? Or an application, it doesn't apply to everyone, right? So the things that I may say, and sometimes I do a psychoanalytic look, delving into the psychological underpinnings of various scenarios. And some of you guys get triggered, right? There's a knee-jerk reaction and you think that, okay, well, I'm assuming that this applies to you, right? You in particular watching this and everyone who's watching this. And, usually I'm head on, all right? Usually I nail it right on the head. But for some, I understand it may not apply. So let's pull up that video. And as I was saying, a lot of you guys, you got that triggered knee-jerk reaction, like, oh, no, that's not true, and that's not why I am a bull. I just do it for the satisfaction of seeing my wife being pleasured, right? And whatever, right?
Watch 100 plus
I get
live
it.
TV. Your favorite sport?
But there were a significant number of people who was actually honest enough to admit and say, you know what? You are right on my street. You are right up my alley. And you are reading me to the T. And I think through honesty, it is only through honesty, right? And self-awareness, because some of the people who, let's say, were in denial, maybe they weren't so in denial because they were trying to hide something, right? Or ashamed, but they were just in denial because they're not self-aware. So this is where real work comes in, and this is where when I do my videos, my videos often serve as a mirror so that you can see yourself, right? If you don't take the time out in your own personal life to do self-reflection, to be self-aware, to know thyself. So you'll know. You know what drives you. You know what drives your desires, your interests, your motivations, and your behavior. You know yourself inside and out. That way, when a person is doing a reading, right, you're not alarmed, right? You're not defensive. You're not taking things personal because, listen, you have come, not only are you aware of yourself, but you have come to a full acceptance, right? So I get it. There are people at different stages of this sexual identity development, right? I understand. But I made that video, The Real Reason Why White Men Become Cuckolds to Black Bulls, back in 2021. It's actually May 23rd, 2021. That video did go viral. It should not be difficult to find. So you guys go check that out. But I am about to delve into this email. So she's saying that she saw the video, right? And it touched her. I guess she probably just saw it. We're 2 years later, right? We're like October 21st. And she's just now seeing this 2-year-old video. But she says, it was like you were reading a page out of my book. So many things you said had me saying to myself, yes, she is right. And I thought to myself, she is articulating what I feel and want to say. Now, notice that she said, I articulated many things that is of her reality and her experience and that she actually wants to express. my question, now she's going to see this, is why have you not come to that point where you're able to express? What is getting in the way of you being able to express, right? I know, but I want you to kind of reflect for yourself. Your insight on this topic is 100% spot on. When you talked about how some white men wait until they are like 30, 40, or 50 years old to be who they are, it blew me away, right? It's funny enough because like when you guys watched my video, and of course, after I record all my videos live on Facebook, I download them and then I upload them to YouTube for your viewing pleasure. I premiere my videos on YouTube and I watch them with you guys. So I'm able to see myself, right? And I'm able to kind of go and do a review of things that I talked about and just kind of for quality control purposes to see things that I've said, things that I kind of slipped, you know, there are errors. I'm human, right? So I watch them with you guys. And after that, I leave them to the universe, right? I don't go back necessarily to see them again. So when you guys follow up in these emails after you've watched my videos long after they've been posted, it's kind of like a refresher for me, right? I'm like, I said that? Like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I said that, right? So yes, I think I remember saying that, you know, unfortunately, and not only in this video, but I said this in other videos too, because this is a thing that people, because we live in this society that I think it kind of promotes itself as being a purist society, right? Like, you know, we're so holier than thou, we're religious, and, you know, we don't do anything wrong, right? We have developed these stereotypical ways of being, right? And this perception of what is right, what is wrong, right? And, you know, there's male and then there's female and then that's it, right? When I think we're such dynamic creatures. So we don't fit in just one or the other box. We were like on a spectrum. You know, I truly wholeheartedly believe that. So I can understand in how people get kind of caught up with this socialization, right? It definitely makes sense as a child going through the development, right? And being, you know, under the care, the auspice of your parents or your caretakers, you know, you don't have a choice. But for me, even I remember as a child, I always had a choice, right? I may have to deal with the consequences of that choice, you know, and going against the grain and, you know, exercising my own sense of autonomy, being able to make decisions about my life, right? Even as a 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old, whatever, right? Like, I am my own person. I've always been my own person, no matter the context and no matter where I have been, you know. Even when I was a little girl, my mom wanted to, when she put those bows in my hair, like they would find their way off of my hair after she would do it, right? Because I think she had in her mind her way of dressing me up as a little girl, and I had in my mind my way of how I wanted to be, right? As Danielle, without bows on my freaking hair, right? Without wearing dresses, you know, and earrings, you know. My mom, as an aside, right? So I didn't get my ears pierced. I was like in my teenage years because my mom, of course, she wanted me to do the girly girly thing and get my ears pierced, as with most mothers. And my father was like, nah, we're not having it. So yes, going through that developmental phase, right? I can understand how people can get sucked up into this, right? And being forced to identify oneself and behave a certain way. But then it's just like, at what point do we as adults, as informed and educated adults, take responsibility and say, you know what, I'm an adult now, right? And I'm aware that I have been socialized to be a certain way. And while I may agree on certain ways that I have been reared, right? And I accept those aspects of my identity, there are other aspects that I'm not really feeling too much, right? That's not really me, but I was forced to be this way because I was living up under someone else's roof. They were taking care of me. They were feeding me, right? And providing shelter. That's one thing. But that's no longer the case now, right? And so Yes, I'm posing the question now. How do we get to our 30s, 40s, oh my gosh, 50, and you're living this false identity? You're living in a false reality. You're living really in someone else's reality, right? This is someone else's idea of who you should be. Your parents, society, but it's not yours. So how do you get to that point? I know how, because we're creatures of habit. And we're like computers. We can be programmed. And once we're programmed, it's hard to break out of that programming. I mean, unless you're like myself, right? I'm not that easily programmed or manipulated, right? Or socially constructed, because I am aware. I feel like I was born conscious. I was born, I think we all are, but it comes to a certain degree of self-awareness, and the consciousness is a degrees of consciousness to be aware of really what is happening, right? What is this mother? What is this woman doing, right? Your caretaker, right? What is she, and why is she doing it, right? What is he doing? What are they doing? Ask questions. I've always been that person to ask, the fuck is this? Especially if it doesn't align with who you are on the inside. And how do you know? Because your spirit will know when you feel discomfort, when you feel like something isn't right. It's rubbing you a certain way. Listen to that. That's your intuition. That's your spirit speaking to you, letting you know, no. This is not right. It's something to be questioned. But what do? We ignore it. And we have become very comfortable. And it's become a routine for us to dismiss it. It's not healthy. It's not healthy, but we've been trained and conditioned to dismiss our internal discomforts, just to accept it and just keep going. It's just like, no, right? And so then you become a 50-year-old, you're not happy. Now, let's pause right here, because I have to say this. I do think that, for a lot of people, when they watch my videos and they see that I am an advocate and not like near an activist, really, for sexual freedom and people just being who they are, right? And it's almost like, you're picking up that flag and you're carrying, this sense of being able to just step out and against the grain and be who you are, and you feel emboldened to do so and through watching my videos, because I support that. It is empowering, right? And then some of you actually do begin to take action. You do feel the psychological change being released from your mind. And you do feel a sense of freedom. But it doesn't change everything. I think it does lighten the load a bit, though. It does, lighten the burden and make you feel, it makes you feel a little bit free. And through that freedom, you feel happier, right? And you feel like, okay, something is changing within me for the good. But then there's still other things that need to be taken care of and need to be looked into. But I still feel like it's never too late. So let's say you are a 40-some, 50-year-old person watching this. It's never too late. It's never too late. Even in your 30s, it's never too late. Don't feel like, okay, dang, I lived most of my life. Now what the fuck? All right, let's keep going. So she says, I am 50 and I'm still living a double life and afraid to be me. I think here, that's very poignant. That line right there. I am 50 and I'm still living a double life and afraid. Yo, you talking about transparency, like kudos to you. And you don't really know me. I mean, you know me from watching my videos, but you don't really know me, right? Like in real life. And it's just like for you to, I guess, trust me with your deepest, darkest, if you want to consider it dark, it's not really dark, but maybe light, right? Because when you're coming to the truth is really light. But even see that as a form of conditioning, right? To label an awakening, deepest, darkest, right? I catch myself sometimes, but it's just like, kudos to you though for having that degree of self-awareness and being able to be transparent through me, to the world, even though you're doing it anonymously, because that just shows like you are stepping into your greatness. You're stepping into yourself. You're stepping into who you are, irrespective of what society wants you to be. It's just not, it's not going to happen. You've lived that life for so long. Like you say, the double life, code switching, trying to be this, trying to be that, trying to fit in, like that is exhausting, right? That's where the term gender dysphoria come about. It's in the DSM. But much of the anxiety, much of the depression, the insecurities that people who are not necessarily heteronormative, right, or who are bisexual, identify themselves as bisexual, lesbian, transsexual, transgender, whatever have you, who are non-conforming to the typical gender norms, do experience varying degrees of mental and emotional anguish and distress. This is a thing. And that comes from trying to fit in. It comes from society imposing these unrealistic expectations and norms onto people, onto society at large. And it just becomes so exhausting trying to live up to that. Life is hard enough. So could you imagine living and navigating through life being someone that you're not? I mean, a lot of y'all can relate. People do it every day, putting on this outer coat, professional coat, right, to fit into this role, right, within a profession, within corporate, working a 9-to-5 job. Is that really you? Or is this a character? Is this a role that you're playing? Is this a position that you have learned to adapt to play in order to get money, just to survive, right? Just to live, just to pay bills, to survive, to keep a roof over your head, to have food. And a lot of people are waking up, right? Thank God really for social media. It can be a blessing and a curse, but through social media, obviously there are different types of people, right? And with different types of people have created, and promoted different types of content. And I am in the world, right? When you look at, if you were to see my social media feed, especially on Instagram, like I've created a world, a microcosm of my own world for myself, right? So yes, we live in this greater macrocosm in society, right? And there's racism and there's hate and there's crime and there's all this negative bullshit. But then thanks to social media, we can create our own kind of virtual reality. And that virtual reality is not fake, because we are exposing ourselves to it day to day, minute by minute, every time we pick up our phone, right? Or receive a notification. Like, this is our world, right? So that, I think, is the blessing in it, and then through that, whatever you subscribe to, right? Or whoever you follow, whatever kind of content you follow, for me, is conscious. It's all about being woke, right? Being aware, being informed. And even within that, though, you got to be careful, right? But for the most part, in creating that world, it's just like it feeds you the algorithm then feeds you content that falls within what is healthy for you, what you like, what aligns with your interests. That's important. So you want to make sure you create your own world deliberately, right? But yeah, I am 50 and I'm still living a double life and afraid of, it can be very scary. That's a great choice of an emotion to kind of encapsulate this. It's scary. And you are afraid, because living in a certain body, in a certain reality, in a certain dress costume, really, for you. You know, stepping outside of that and then doing it publicly, and, you know, it's like starting over again. It's like starting a whole life all over again. Yes, that is scary. I have been in relationships with women and wanted them to sleep with other men. So this line, she says, I have been in relationships with women as a man, right? She's born a man. She's really a trans woman posing, well, she says had, so historically, was posing as a heterosexual man dating women, right? And wanted them to sleep with other men or dress sexy for attention in public and attract men. But here she says, but it's like you said, I really just wanted that to be me. So as I said in previous videos about the underlying reason, not saying all, but a significant number of why white men become cuckolds is because they are living vicariously through their women. And it's kind of unfortunate because you're posing as something you're not, you're being deceptive, you're being misleading, and you're being dishonest. Why? And how is this being dishonest? Because your partner does not know your true intentions. Maybe they will come to know, and some have, and then they're hurt. Like, I see stories, right? I follow Kendra G. She was a former radio personality in Chicago. Then she recently moved to Los Angeles, and now she's been hosting a dating show on all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, where the whole goal is for her to match singles, right? And she does this like in vivo, on live video. And to just hear stories. I've watched many of her live videos, and just to see, like, she'll ask a question, she asks, a series of questions about the person, getting to know who they are, and a little bit about their past and why they're single. And, they begin to share stories about, what happened. And yeah, it's just disheartening to hear, people being caught up in situations where they thought it was one thing, right? They thought that they were dating, let's say, for example, a woman thought she was dating a heterosexual man, to find out that he also likes women. Now, there's no judgment there. However, the judgment is no judgment about, being attracted to the same sex. You are who you are. Y'all know that I'm a strong advocate for people just being who they are. The judgment and the ridicule comes with being deceptive, right, about it, right? And that comes with anything. I've dated men that lied about fucking their marital status, for example, lying about the most mundane things, right? Having their own apartment or whatever. It's just like lying, it's not good for either side, right? And so that is very problematic. And this is a reason why that, at some point, which I applaud you and I commend you for taking this step of initiating this conversation, so that obviously you have done some self-reflection. Before you even sent me this email, you've thought about this, right? These are ideas. These are thoughts that have circulated in your mind before you even decided to type what you sent to me, right? So that's where I commend you on that, because you've been thinking. Your conscience is thinking for you, right? Your conscience knows, like, this isn't right. Living a double life, that's not really right. It's not being authentic. It's not being genuine. It's just not right. I don't feel comfortable, right? Our spirits, if we're attuned to ourselves, will let us know. And that's where you are. And I think for you, the question is like, okay, then now I know I'm living a double life. I know this is not sitting well with me. How do I move forward? How do I navigate this situation? Because I am afraid, right? And being your fear, our emotions obviously serve to communicate things of importance to us, to help guide us. right? But sometimes our emotions can be a double-edged sword, right? And serve to be obstacles for us moving forward. We can be paralyzed sometimes by our emotions too. This is where therapy comes in, right? But I do, I really enjoy having these kind of very candid conversations with you guys via my live videos here. And I'm providing some kind of insight that you can take, you can digest, and then you can go and do the work, the real work, right? Because this platform, I think, is just a meeting space for us to kind of explore different ideas, get inspired, get motivated, get some tips, get some information. But obviously, I'm not your therapist, right? I am a psychologist, but I am not your personal therapist, just making that clear. So that's where you have to go and you do the work in private, right? With a therapist that you can trust, right? You build a relationship with. So she says, I have been in relationships with women and wanted them I wanted them to sleep with other men or dress sexy for attention in public and attract men. But it's like you said, I really just wanted that to be me. Now, it's interesting because I know some people watching this, well, that's not all men, right? Like, I may want my wife to dress sexy, right? And I, enjoy being humiliated by her in that she's sleeping with other men in front of me, I know, because I'm a part of the world of BDSM, so I know there is infinite number of fetishes. People get off of all kinds of things. Trust, I know there's a fetish for everything, okay? You got some men that get off just by seeing women with big bellies, right? When they're full from eating. It's like they get off on that. Who would have known, right? I learned that like way back when, freshman in college. Thought that was the most bizarre thing, but it was also funny. It's like, okay, I know people get off for a variety of things. So it's not to say that there aren't a group of men who gain pleasure, genuine, pleasure and innocently from, having their female partner get pleasure, by men, and not that they have an ulterior motive attached to that, right? I think it's important to make that differentiation and tease apart, which is which, right? And this is what this person is emphasizing, that she's speaking to what I pointed out in my video, the real reason why white cuckolds want to attract black bulls. She says, but it's like you said, I really just wanted that to be me, right? Wanting to vicariously live through her partners at the time when she was, posing as a heterosexual man. Could have been a bisexual man too. Maybe the women knew, right? I could go on and on telling you all the parts of your video that describe my life, but I think you get the point. Haha, I am not really sure what I am even writing to you. It's all right. I feel like this email, as with a lot of emails I receive, like people are just like so transparent. So like they're just giving me, their train of thought uninterrupted, unfiltered. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I don't know if this is a topic you even focus on anymore, but I felt compelled to let you know how much it affected me. And granted, yeah, I did say I was taking a hiatus from making videos, but like I do obviously like talking about alternative sexual experiences and lifestyles. So I guess it's safe to say we're back on. So I'm kind of hesitant to say, welcome you guys who would like for me to create a video response to your situation or your different ideas that you've been having. Feel free to reach out to me via email. Most of you do already have my email address. I'm hesitant because I already know I'm going to be inundated, but it's okay. I'm curious to see. I just want to see like if there's let's say, a new, fresh, look at this lifestyle, because in the past, like, I had received so many and they were kind of becoming like repetitive, right? So we'll see. And some of y'all have been kind of, seeing that, I kind of got annoyed or habituated to receiving repetitiveness. Y'all kind of added y'all little spin to it, right? And try to make it like really, really creative, And I can see where y'all were adding y'all like fictional spin on things. But all right, let's continue. But I felt compelled to let you know how much it affected me. I wish I could find strength to be myself and live a true life. But at 50, I don't know if it's worth it anymore. Maybe you're looking at your life and your expected lifespan, or, life expectancy for a white man. What is it now? I don't know. I'm assuming you are based in America. But for American white men, I think it's like 70 something. So maybe you're like, well, I'm kind of approaching the end of life. So let's say you may have, I don't know what your health situation is, right? But just hypothetically speaking, you may have a good 20 years left, or who knows, 30 years, right? Maybe you're thinking you have 20 years, right? And maybe you're like, well, what's the point? I live most of my life is behind me, essentially, right? So if I have 10 years, 15, 20 years, like, what is the point in doing the work now to live my true identity? And me, I just will have to disagree. I'm just going to have to disagree with this line of thinking, what you just said. Like, what's the point? Like, I feel like it can be more damaging to continue your life in the direction that you've been living it. Granted, I mean, change for some people, they say is difficult. It's not easy. It's exhausting. It's tiresome. It's challenging. It just takes so much work. And then that extra work that it takes to even make the smallest of changes in your mind, you may feel that could just add on more stress, right? So are you emotionally and psychologically and physically capable of being able to handle that added stress of going through this metamorphosis, right? This transformation. But it seems like you're already doing it, all right? I think it would be helpful, not just for you, but for those who are watching, other people who are watching, who can relate, to get around people like a support system, right? And I know I've said that I would, ideally like to create like a in-person community, or even online, private membership community where there is that support, because it's obviously much needed. Support goes a long way. And this is the reason why I think oftentimes people do feel isolated. They do stay in their shell. They do stay living this false identity in a double life, because they do not feel supported. And it's much easier for them to stay in that false identity and feel insecure and rejected and ostracized than it is to find their tribe and step outside of those norms and be bold, right? It takes courage, overcoming that fear that you've been driven by, that has controlled your life and dictated your behavior, up to this point. Overcoming that and facing that, just saying to hell with that. You got to get to a point of like, fuck it, right? Some of us, I think life situations will bring us to that point of the fuck it. And it's a good place to be. I've been there. Because it's just like, when you're at that point when you're just like, fuck it, it's like almost like life chooses for you. You're forced to say fuck it. That's a good place. It can be scary too, because you're like, oh my gosh, you feel like you're losing control. You'll feel like what's happening here But it's almost like the universe is taking control and you have to just let go and just let live kind of thing, right? But in that place though, especially, when I think when you first step into that kind of fuck it position, it's scary. Like let's say the first, like something major happens in your life. It's a major shift that happens usually. And and it's scary. And in that first week, first couple of days, it's scary. But then like when you're there and you just like, fuck it, yo. It's like you living life, man. You riding that wave. It's a really good, because you have put aside what people think. You can no longer care. You don't even have the space. You're in a position in that life when you get to that point, because life has happened to you, you don't even have the space to even care what people think, right? You just don't. And what comes to mind is a person who is at rock bottom. You just don't, like when you reach rock, when you think of like, let's say homeless people, right? Or people who are undomiciled and, you think they don't care. They can't care. Like you're in survival mode. You cannot care. Oh, what is this person going to think if I ask them for $1? To hell what they think. You need that fucking dollar, okay? For food, right? So I'm painting like a comparison, a metaphor. But it's like in that same mind, in that same like train of thinking, it's like you cannot afford to care at that point. It's a very good space to be in, though, because your actions at that point, after that point, it's just carefree. Man, that's a great space to be in. Like I feel like I'm on the cusp of that. Like I gotta get back to that, because unfortunately, for those who are aware, like I have been in the realm of corporate America, and I feel like that is the most. I know this is a bit in the side, but being in a space where it is kind of aligned to what we're talking about, it's just like having to conform, right? And wear this fucking professional code, and I feel like it takes away. It's so taxing on the mind, the body, and soul. It's like you deserve to do something for yourself. You deserve to take yourself away from that. So to ask the question, is it even worth it? Yes. Because the other side of it, the flip side, is that it is draining you. It's costing you so much. Of course it's worth it for you to step away from that. And like I said, I feel like I'm at the cusp of just stepping back into my carefree world. Oh my gosh, it feels so good just not worrying about, what are they going to think? Or am I going to get punished for this? Or am I going to get consequences or reprimanded? Fuck that shit, okay? I feel like we are born with this internal sense of what's right, what's wrong, this drive, a sense of direction. And then there's society. And then there's, all of these outside things imposing upon us and become like caged animals, psychologically speaking, and that takes a toll. So let's go ahead and wrap this up. I wish I could find the strength to be myself and live a true life, but at 50, I don't know if it's worth it anymore. I must admit I'm very vain, and my appearance as a female or trans female is critical to me. How are you vain? You're saying you're vain related to you valuing how you look and valuing appearance? I don't think that's vanity. I think that we've been told that when we put stock into like materialism, so to speak, or how we look, that it's considered to be like vain. No, it's not. How you look reflects upon how you feel, right? How you feel about yourself reflects upon, how you look. It's interchangeable. And I feel like, no, it's not vanity. It's not at all. if I'm hearing you correctly, feel free, I want you to actually, to respond to this video in a follow-up email. He said, your appearance as a trans female is critical to me. If I'm not going to be happy with how I look, I don't want to do it. So what makes you think you're not going to be happy with the way you look? Now, since we're talking about looks, and you did follow up, you sent, you sent a picture of yourself, right? And when I looked at the picture, first, when I saw that you sent the follow-up email, right? And I saw there's an attachment, and usually, people send me these pictures. I'm like, please don't tell me. I don't want to see no fucking dick pic, because a lot of y'all be sending dick pics, okay? And so I was hesitant, but then I saw it wasn't a dick pic, right? And then I clicked on it, and I was just like, not bad, okay? Not bad. Not bad. Now, maybe you are self-conscious about certain aspects of your physicality, but from what I see, I'm like, okay, not bad. Like, what is it? What's the problem? Not bad, right? So in this photo, she's wearing a skirt. Look like a flowered skirt, kind of like a mini, so it is like a couple inches above her knee. She's wearing heels, comfortable enough, obviously, in her appearance to put on a skirt, and comfortable enough to put on heels. Not every woman feels comfortable wearing a skirt, especially that comes above the knee. So you have a bit of confidence there. I'm trying to figure out where is the confidence lacking. And with that skirt, she's wearing a long sleeve black blouse, V-neck, and she's wearing a blonde colored kind of streaked wig. So it's a blonde wig with like brown streaks, look like, that comes a little bit past her shoulders. Okay. So what's the issue here? What's the issue here? She says, if I'm not going to be happy with how I look, I don't want to do it. It's like all or nothing kind of thinking. It has to be perfect or not do it at all. And because you don't feel that you're able to measure up to whose standard of beauty, right? Because it seems like you are comparing yourself to some standard that has been implanted in your mind. Is it your standard of beauty, or is it societal standards of beauty, right? And there is some self-consciousness there that you're grappling with. Like, you feel self-conscious. You show me a picture, it's like, okay, boom, boom, there's a picture, okay. And it's a full body picture, so but yeah, I think there's a gradient, right, of self-acceptance, and for us, women, not just women, everyone, right, but speaking in terms of women, like, we have a degree of contentment in terms of how we feel about ourselves as it relates to beauty, right? And it would, like, it's an interesting study, I think, to do, to see, despite how we look outwardly, right? Because there's outward appearance and then it's how we feel, right? A woman can be dressed to the T, dressed down, head to toe. And from the outside, a person may say, damn, like, she's a 10, she's beautiful. But then on the inside, does she really feel that way? You would be surprised how many women, if they had to rate themselves, they probably would say that if they could be honest enough, right, on a scale from 1 to 10, they give themselves a 3 in terms of how they feel about themselves, their beauty, right? But a person on the outside probably will rate them a 9 or a 10. So it's just like, yeah, there is a lot of insecurity issues there. And it's warranted, I would say, because just of how we've been socialized. And then their social media, right? So there's the blessing and there's the curse. And I think the flip side to social media is that, oh my gosh, we are inundated with these photos, these false perceptions of what beauty is, right? We're constantly being shown what society is trying to script for us, what beauty looks like. And you go on Instagram and you see the photos that go viral, and you look at the comments, and like, oh, your beauty, and oh, my flawless, and and then you see this image, right? It's embedded. The moment you see it, it becomes part of your memory, right? It's encoded. And then there's always this, like, it could be conscious or subconscious comparison. You see what you have. You know yourself, right? You know your body better than anybody else, right? Because you're sleeping with your body every day. You're feeding your body. Shit comes out your body. You're washing your body. You know the crevices of your body. You know the blemishes. You know everything that's so-called wrong with your body, right? And you're comparing yourself to these airbrush freaking photos that we know are Photoshop. We know that they have filters. We know that all that shit is fake, right? You know that they're wearing makeup. You know, like, everything is just, it's not really authentic. If you were to really look at an authentic picture, right? Free from filters, free from makeup and all of that stuff from these Instagram models or even celebrities that post on IG. It's just like, then you will see the real. You see that they have wrinkles. You see that they have the dark spots underneath their eyes. You see all the flaws. You see that they don't have perfect bodies. There's nothing perfect. You see that they have foot fungus or whatever. Like, women do get foot fungus. You see, like, there's work that needs to, like, you see that nobody is perfect, right? But then, it's just, I feel like it just creates this false comparison that is unfair. And yes, that feeds into one's insecurity. And so here you are at this all or nothing. If I'm not going to be happy with how I look, I don't want to do it at all, right? Like, to hell with just stepping out and being a fully confident, trans woman or woman, right? I don't know if that is just something I tell myself to keep me from trying, or maybe it means I am not truly trans and my motivation to be female is just sexual, that you just want to have sex, with men. It could be both. Right? That's a good question. And I know, like, this video is lengthy, obviously, at this point. We're about to wrap it up. But that is a powerful right there. Right there, right? See, you have good insight. You can tell that you've been doing some self-reflection. Right? You're like, okay, is this just something I tell myself? Doing the work to become an attractive trans woman, right? Is it really worth it? Or why am I doing this in the first place? Like, am I doing it just because I know this is what men like? So I dress up in this way to appease them, to attract them, because I want a man, right? And I want to have sex with a man. Will you be able to have sex with a man without the bells and whistles, right, of becoming a woman outwardly? Y'all can answer that question. I mean, I would think that you would, but will you attract the kind of man that you like? All of these are questions to explore, right? I believe that, there's so many different flavors of bisexual, gay men, it's just so many different flavors. And you see the men who are, holding on to their masculinity, who are centered, let's say, in their masculinity. Hell, and they get dick, right? You have men who, want to trans into a woman. They get dick. You have men that do it very, well, I would say, or eloquently, right? And maybe you can't even tell that they were not born a woman. They were born biologically a man, right? Or assigned a male at birth. You wouldn't be able to tell, right? And they clearly get dick. But I feel like there's a spectrum of different men, right? In your case, who were born or assigned male at birth, that get to have sex with men, right? They get their sexual needs met, and they fall on a spectrum in terms of their outward gender expression. So that's something I think you're grappling with, and maybe you've experimented with that, right? Maybe you have, you have stuck with your typical outward expression of malehood, right? And wearing pants and, no makeup, and maybe you see how that works and see what kind of men that you attract, and maybe you say, okay, let me see what I can do if I put on a skirt, right? What kind of men I'll try, see what that attracts. I think this is an experience and reality that is not just specific to your experience. Like, hell, even biologically born women, like as myself, like, hell, I've experimented with that. Do I feel comfortable wearing mini skirts necessarily all the time? Or heel? I damn sure don't feel comfortable wearing no fucking heels. So, and I know there are men that, that's their preference. They want to go on a date and they want their woman in heels. But I would say they're more so the minority, though. Because, I've dated all kinds of men, and, men are just men. Like, a lot of men don't care about that. They don't care about, you got to wear heels. Like, I want my woman. No, they don't care. You guys see how I dress, right? And I do like the Doc Martens. So that's kind of the style that I've been, more so finding myself wearing. And I've been on dates with men in Doc Martens, right? And Doc Martens, for those who don't know, it's kind of like gender neutral shoes, right? Shoes kind of made for men or women. I wear skirts, like the African kind of patterned skirts, but those are longer skirts, I do wear a purse. It's not something that I've done like in years past, but more recently. For my purse, earrings. Whether you guys notice or not, you guys have never seen me wear earrings because I don't wear them, right? But I still attract men, right? I know a lot of men are attracted to big butts. Not that little boy back there, but by comparison to maybe, let's say, what you see on Instagram, no, right? Especially with the BBLs, no, right? I have no desire for that either, right? If it's not naturally, inherently who I am and what I was born with, I have no interest or desire in paying money to add or change anything about my body. Absolutely no, right? But I know that there are a set of men that they like that. But one has to ask themselves, are you doing it for you? Or are you doing it to be accepted? And I feel like if you're doing things just to be accepted like that, they don't sit too well with me. You're doing all this shit, changing all these parts of, who you are naturally to be accepted. If you're doing it to be accepted by men, like, what happens if you're not? You're doing all, like, can you imagine how shitty you may feel? I'm like, nah, fuck all of that. Now, if you're doing it for yourself, that's different. Because this is, what makes you feel good on the inside. Irrespective of the attention that it may draw, right? That you may be reinforced by and like. Set aside that, right? Doing it for yourself, putting on a skirt, and dressing how you want to. Are you doing it for you? If you're doing it for you, okay. If it makes you happy, fine. But ask yourself that. And then you say, I don't know if that is just something I tell myself to keep me from trying, or maybe it means I am not truly trans. My motivation to be female is just sexual. I hate to impose on your time, but I would love to know your thoughts and opinion on how one finds the courage to just say, well, this is me. This is me, right? And live a true life. And I think that's something maybe you're still trying to explore. Like, who are you, right? You to even step out, to be able to say, right, like you say, to have the courage to step out and say, hey, world, here I am, right? Take it or leave it. You have to first figure out who is that. Because I think there is like a back and forth or interplay, and we all do it. It's like testing, it's like experimentation, right? You may put on a certain color, see how the world responds. Oh, I got a lot of compliments wearing this color. I think this is my color, right? Or you may, try a different look. You may got some weird stares, right? And then that's a learning experience, right? That's kind of conditioning you to change your behavior accordingly based on the receptivity of people in society, right? Or in that particular environment, wherever you went when you stepped out, to see how the world receives it. And I think, we learn through trial and error, right? I find it interesting because it's interesting to do that experimentation. I've done it, not purposely though, but I have been observant of people's response to what I wear. I've noticed that, and I'm just like, not that I was intentionally trying to get a response, right? For example, I live in Upper East Side, Manhattan, New York, and I remember when I first moved over here, especially with Harlem adjacent to Upper East Side. Harlem's one of my favorite neighborhoods, right? And when I moved back to New York in 2020, I already kind of was immersed into my African culture identity, right? And, feeling more comfortable to express my African identity through what I wear. This is something that I have learned, through therapy when I was in my doctoral studies in Los Angeles. My therapist, my psychologist had me watch a TED Talk video, and the focus of the video was that, who we are is reflected in what we wear. And so that's important, like if we are embodying a certain characteristic, an identity, what better way to express it than how we dress, right? And what we wear. The TED Talk, it was only 10, 12 minutes or whatever, but it was so powerful and poignant, and it just resonated with me, stuck with me. And so like from there, I'm just like, because at the time before I, saw the video, I'm just wearing I'm regular plain Jane, regular degular. But it does make a difference, yo. Like, it communicates so much more. And it's not that, you're doing it for compliments or you're doing it for this or that. You're doing it for yourself, especially like you said, if your outward appearance is something that you value, if your identity as a person is something that you value, if your self-respect, right, your dignity, right, is something that you value, yes, it's going to reflect in how you carry yourself, right, and what you wear. And I noticed that, living out here and just what I wear, when I wear like colorful clothing, people notice all different shades of people. And I receive, many compliments, right, just ongoing, like, oh my gosh, you look so vibrant. I had people thank me for what I have worn, right, and wearing my African regalia. I remember like several people just like, oh my gosh, you brighten up my day. Thank you for dressing so nicely. Like people thought, I was like, whoa. So like it can go a long way, to say the least. Yes, and it does matter. But yeah, she says, I look forward to possibly hearing back from you and hope to get your thoughts. If I don't, please know that I really enjoyed your video and was very impressed by your insight. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. And then she signs off with her full name. I wonder if it is her name that she gave herself. I would assume so. Maybe she had a legal name change. But very interesting. I love that you were very transparent. You were humble, you know, you were very vulnerable in your email kind of expose, so to speak. You know, you didn't go into too much detail. And so feel free to follow up if you would like to clarify a few things or add. I am willing to do a video response. And on that note, you guys can feel free to share your comments below, and I'll catch you all in the next video.